Hi, I'm Pat McCutcheon, CEO, founder, chairman of MediPharm Labs Global, and you're listening to Professionally Cannabis.
Where do they go, the smoke rings I blow each night? Oh, what do
Hello and welcome to the Professionally Cannabis podcast. So happy to have you with us today, listener. And Oscar, hello to you. How are you doing?
I'm very well, despite the miserable weather, the second lockdown, and everything going on. It's a great day for a podcast. Listen to our gentle words while the raindrops fall outside. I assume all our listeners are also similarly ensconced in somewhere, hiding from the rain.
Well, even in this lockdown, lots to be smiling about. And this pod episode is certainly one of them. Oscar, who did we have on the show today?
Well, today's guest was a lot of fun. Pat McCutcheon, the CEO, chairman of the board, and founder of MediPharm Labs. So they're a Canadian company focused solely on extraction, and they've made quite a few international moves over the past year, really, when doing anything international has been very difficult. But Pat was a wonderful guest, very funny, very engaging, and I thought this interview was a great example of how the cannabis space goes from that recreational or slightly less well-measured approach to the GMP production that we are going to need to see for this to become a global medicine. Well, I believe that. I mean, some people believe that it should be recreational and decriminalised for all, but we can skip over that bit. This is a great example of the medicalisation of cannabis and a great guest to have on the pod. I don't know, Johnny, did I miss anything there that we should have mentioned?
No, I think that's a great overview. And yeah, he was a really, really nice guy. And I think we both really enjoyed speaking with him. So listener, I hope you also enjoy listening to him as well. Shall we roll the tape, Oscar?
Yeah, let's go.
Where do they go?
I'm delighted to say that we're joined on the pod by Pat McCutcheon, the co-founder, CEO and chairman of MediPharm Labs, with 3 impressive titles there and 15 years experience working within the pharmaceuticals industry. We have the perfect person to discuss everything medical cannabis. Pat, welcome to the Professionally Cannabis podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on here, guys. Thank you so much.
And it's a pleasure to have you, Pat. And as you must know by now, we ask our guests one question at the beginning, and it's what led you to the plant?
What led me to the plant? Yes, it's a longer story. I'll keep it sharp and tight. But when I was quite young, actually, I had seen the very positive effects on some of their family members, and it really created a love for the plant itself. Probably between 15 and 16. I went into university with a view of being a medical doctor. I come from a long line of physicians in my family, so I did pre-med in university. But all of my additional courses, my choice courses, I actually picked to look at plant biochemistry, plant sciences, and then continue to hone my understanding of what the plant could bring in terms of a medical opportunity. I then very much utilized this strength and these learnings to move into pharmaceuticals, learn how other pharmaceuticals were made, manufactured, distributed, sales, marketed, and then position it to use that foundation to actually to found a company that looked at the cannabis plant and the cannabinoids as a pure medicine, which I think we've done a pretty good job of doing, and now the world knows that we're one of the global players for medical cannabis plant.
And I'd love to talk about the globe knowing, because MediPharm was founded in 2015. Right now, you're pretty international with a subsidiary in Australia, recent signings of deals in Germany, and designs on Latin America. So I suppose without going into too much detail and giving away all your secrets, can you tell us how MediPharm is launching onto the world stage?
So global launch, yes, we've always been very interested in moving medicines, cannabis-based medicines into different global areas of the world, obviously with our facility in Australia. It's been an early focus of the company because the company itself has been architected to be a pharmaceutical company, cannabinoid-based medications. So There's no growth of any plants in our facility. We buy significant amounts of supply from a number of different players, we extract it, and then we either send it directly to an international regulatory body that has been approved, or we do a number of steps in the kind of the value methodology, and then we send it to Australia to be finished, to be then sent on to other regulatory bodies that their certifications would line up to. One of the main reasons for this is that we really just didn't see the total addressable market for true medical cannabis opportunities in Canada being nearly as robust as the globe, which I think a lot of players look and see the opportunity. They communicate that they're going after the opportunity, but if you don't have the certifications like we have, which has taken us almost 6 years to get, you have no ability to access the global community for export of products. So it's been a wonderful transition from the Canadian market into the international market. I have to say, as a last comment here, it took just over 250,000 air miles of travel last year to almost every area of the globe with either newly evolving or just evolved or just approved regulatory areas for cannabis. And so that's been a very exciting part of building this company and now how we're positioned globally today.
Nice. Well, I'm sure you've got very accustomed to the in-flight meals. And with regards to your travel all across the world, a big focus of MediPharm's labs at the moment is towards the pharmaceutical side of the industry. Pat, in this, what about your previous experience within pharma have you been able to leverage in your role as CEO at MediPharm Labs? And at what point in time in the sort of life cycle of the company was the focus predominantly on we're going down pharma?
So, yes, to answer the second part of the question first, the focus was absolutely from day one. From day one of the vision, our vision has always been to architect a company that would perform different methodologies, different actions that would look at the plant itself and then extract certain components and then manufacture those components into pharmaceutical products. That was always the vision from the beginning. So that's an easy one. I actually spent just over 15 years in pharmaceutical sales and marketing between three well-known companies, AstraZeneca, Sanofi Aventis, finally Johnson & Johnson, where I learned a ton of different angles and ethical distribution of products in Canada. I was the head of the hospital pharmaceutical team that not only took really kind of the lead on negotiating different products for larger healthcare centers or hospital centers, but also gave me an incredible opportunity to be involved in early intervention of different patients in different areas of Canada. It was a great role that gave me the latitude to actually travel Canada and learn with this from the perspective of diabetes, and then second from the perspective of kidney failure. And what I was able to do is I was able to actually travel across the country and do assist with setting up point of care testing in rural areas of Canada that really didn't have much access to medications or to healthcare.
Great that you've been involved with patient groups and seen the sort of niche medicines and understand the patient access argument ongoing, because that's the biggest thing certainly here in Europe for patients, is that there's no real good possibility of access. So I'd love for you to tell us about your recent signing with STADA, the German pharmaceutical company, and what you're going to do with them and what you're going to do for patients in Europe.
Yes, and thanks so much for this question. This is arguably or literally the most robust achievement of our company to date. STADA is an incredibly well-respected partner for us. And I think actually for Europe, in fact, just in terms of trust and reliability, in terms of high quality medications and distribution. When we first started the architecture and the vision of MediPharm Labs, the goal was in fact to sign a deal with a major pharmaceutical company once we had kind of learned and matured past the earlier stages of post-licensing and setting up a manufacturing platform, and then executing on all the audits and certifications to get us to be a GMP certified facility, which without that would not have even allowed us to have a conversation with STADA or any other pharmaceutical company in the first place. And so one of our main strategies as we look to distribute product around the world is that it is not necessarily, in some pockets, that we've seen other companies try to take this other strategy where distributing their own branded products and then marketing their own branded products has been somewhat effective. We have seen a battleground, more or less, in Europe now of the classic Canadian big licensed producers moving products. When we looked at this and we looked at the opportunity, we felt that consumers, patients, physicians, physician networks would be much more comfortable with a local player that had a wealth of experience and trust and integrity, and working with a player such as Stada with 125 years of experience distributing products in Germany, with 120 countries that they distribute products in, that the working in partnership and in fact being the back end manufacturer of a company like Stada would be the way to actually truly position and dominate the opportunity to move the most amount of product to the patients that need the product across the rest of Europe, not only Germany, but the rest of Europe. We've been quite conservative in terms of how we've gotten into the details of exactly the commercial elements and the evolving commercial elements of the deal itself, as we're also quite aware that there's other competitors in the space, and we want to keep cards quite close to our chest on certain elements. But we will be manufacturing Stada branded products. They will be distributed in Q1 of next year. And we're very excited to support a partner that has such a robust representation of all of the different areas of products that they distribute. They're a very well-regarded player, and the journey actually, which has been just over a year and a half with them, typical pharmaceutical journey because of all diligence, has been fantastic. So we couldn't be more excited for this, and we think that the Stada branded product is going to definitely perform well against some of the other Canadian LP products that are on the shelf in Europe.
Very interesting. So I see what you're doing. And as a follow-up question, and this perhaps comes from a friend of mine in the pharmaceutical industry in general, well, not in general, sorry. He works in API manufacturing, and his question was about this, because we're having a conversation about this deal, is will MediPharm be looking for an API partner in Europe as well as Stada, who my friend at least saw as more of a formulations team? So they will, if you would, make the product by taking in the different formulations, but will you be looking to produce active pharmaceutical ingredients from cannabis such that you might get into, I don't know, the dronabinol market or other places like that?
Yes, so absolutely. This is an easy one. We've in a number of different relationships that we're incubating now in Europe, in Latin America, in the South Pacific are very much focused on an API-based relationship. The way that we've set up our platform, the number of different extraction methodologies we have, from primary to downstream, in the fractionation and unique identification of smaller cannabinoids for other major product formulations, is definitely something we're very excited to do. We've met a number of companies in Europe that have executed incredibly well on this, and I think actually it's been a significant portion of influence on our platform and the way that we have looked at our quality and regulatory teams. So Stada is a great example of a relationship where we will be working with their formulation expertise as well as ours, and then definitely leaning on their distribution and sales and marketing techniques to be able to move these products. But we are also definitely very interested in working with other companies that are looking at new formulations, new disease state areas, and we can be, and also looking for joint ventures, but we can be a great partner for the support of the different building blocks of cannabinoids to these different relationships, smaller cannabinoids.
Well, Oscar, it sounds like you can tell your friend to slip into Pat's DMs and there could be a relationship there.
There you go. Always open for these opportunities. Yes, please.
Awesome. And Pat, a question that actually, I'm going to pause that question for slightly later in the interview, because actually something that's come to mind off the back of what you were just saying around the API topic. For you guys as an organization, in particular an organization that is working and operating in the pharma space, how do you and how would you go about your due diligence for an API provider? You know, there are lots of folks out there who are manufacturing cannabis and cannabis flower and extracts at the moment. What do you need to see as an organization operating in a pharma space to ensure that any API providers or other folks that are going to plug into your infrastructure are at the right level to also be operating within the pharma space?
Yes, that's a great question, guys. Our two facilities have absolutely been purpose-built to be GMP certifiable. We have our first certification from Australia. We are expecting our next one from Germany when COVID eases up for the actual audit inspection. And we've actually also been pre-built, and there's been a number of additions that we've included in the description of what GMP is to also adhere to FDA GMP once the States becomes legal. But this is a very important point of giving support or rationalization as to why any company in Canada could actually play in the international markets and could in fact incubate relationships with companies like Stata. We have a full supply chain within our two platforms that is certifiable, but also we need to certify our partners that are the cultivators, or in fact even the biosynthetics or the synthetics that we get as well, to prove that all of these different suppliers would be GMP certifiable. And there's an important part to this that a lot of people don't realize is that it's one thing to pass a test. It's one thing to get certification from, let's say, a smaller island nation like Malta. It's a much different one to actually achieve a certification from a tier one country that is well respected. And with the TGA in particular, they have an ability to export with the certification to over 52 countries that are part of the PICS association that comes with this certification. So being able to diligence your supply chain for us is an absolute pertinent required piece of building on any relationships between big pharma or CPG companies. It's a must.
And when we talk about these relationships with suppliers, I think you guys at MediPharm have one of the more interesting business models, and I've heard you refer to this as the Swiss impartial model, in that you don't cultivate yourselves. So can you talk us more about how you came to that decision and how that's affected your future business plans?
Yes, absolutely. Another fantastic question, one that we get all the time. We, in essence, are agnostics to supply. When it comes to strain or cannabinoid breakdown or terpene breakdown, we pick and choose from a number of different supplies that have high quality and can pass auditing requirements. However, we are very much the Switzerland of the Canadian cannabis industry in that we can work with many suppliers and many distributors on both sides of the value chain. And this we felt was very important because, as you see now, the commoditization of flower in Canada, not unlike the commoditization of flower and concentrates in California and some of the more mature industries in the States, we've seen this very drastically now in Canada. So over the last year or so, we've seen prices of anywhere between $4 and $5 for a gram of cannabis down to now for outdoor products, that is for distribution within Canada. It's not quite available for export yet, but just to give an example, is anywhere between 20 and 50 cents now per gram. So this has made a major change to the industry itself, and we felt our business model would be much stronger and differentiated to access a number of different opportunities of high quality product at significantly reducing prices, therefore de-risking our business model. And so it's something that we took a lot of flack at, not only from Health Canada, but from a lot of the different elements or groups that we were pitching to fundraise for our project. But we feel very strongly that this was the right play. And if you're in Canada running a fully commoditized business plan to only cultivate product, you're in a tricky situation right now because of how quickly the prices have come down.
If we were to talk a bit about the markets over recent times, I mean, even without COVID, there was, let's say, bloodsheds on the capital markets when it came to cannabis, and MediPharm seemed to rise above that compared to others. Can you talk a little bit about your capital market strategy? How do you keep the stock price high while still keeping the value growth sustainable, I think is the word I'm looking for here?
Yes, we definitely very happy with our stock price about 8 or 9 months ago when the wave of cannabis companies were pumping through, and I think our differentiated story was a very exciting one. and one that we were definitely able to capitalize with the way that we were able to raise capital at a wonderful price last year, but also to be able to position and de-risk our business model relative to a lot of the other players in this space. Having said that, today we have a significantly lower market cap because of, I think, there's still elements that we are painted with the same brush as a number of other major Canadian LPs, where a ton of these groups are not executing on their foundational business model, their core business fundamentals. And so at this point, we're very much we're taking a new look at this, and it was I think very well positioned that with the signing of the STATA deal, and now you've just seen us release another clinical trial portfolio that we'll be now accelerating on to look at new formulations and to look at how appropriate they can be for different disease state areas. We truly are differentiating ourselves as a pharmaceutical company of cannabis-based products rather than a cannabis company that distributes cannabis products within Canada. And so it's a challenge when the markets are down, but we're very excited for what this means as we now reposition ourselves. I won't say pivot, I'll say enhance or evolve, reposition as a pharmaceutical company, which was always the vision and the position of the execution from the start.
Now, Pat, as our time together draws to a close, I'm going to pull a question out from the archives of the Professionally Cannabis podcast, and one that I haven't asked for quite some time. So looking forward to hearing your answer on this one. Pat, the question I'm going to put to you is, would you be able to tell us, A, what your leadership style is in terms of running the organization, in terms of being the CEO and driving the strategy? And as an extension of that, could you give us some insight into perhaps a fact about yourself or something about you that perhaps colleagues of yours at MediPharm Labs wouldn't know until they listen to this podcast?
Wouldn't know. It was a nice tweak at the end. It's going to be a little tricky. So I'll answer the first one with my leadership style. My leadership style is very much to be very involved and to lead by example. I feel that my leadership style over the last couple of years has definitely evolved from very much an entrepreneurial spirit, relentless, very passionate worker, now to one of someone who listens and has to understand the situation of my employees and my direct reports before I make positional comments or how I direct them. One of the things that has been very forefront in terms of my communications with all of my direct reports is accountability, perseverance, a number of things that are facing not only the cannabis industry right now, but the world, is the mental health challenges around COVID and how we position with COVID and how we continue to run voluminous or robust businesses in this very difficult time. And I think that one of the things that I've done to assist with this is to really increase my time with my direct reports. And I actually, it's very much from the heart, I spend a significant amount of time talking about how they're doing in life and how things are progressing in each individual's life. We've got a number of people that live downtown Toronto in small apartments, and I can only imagine how difficult that is. And I think that this is the time of the world that we're faced in right now. You not only have to drive a solid business with a solid business plan and strategy, but you also have to be very aware of mental health and how it fits into your business, because the mental health leads to the culture of the company. And as a company that's driving towards ROI and accountability and shareholder value, if you don't have a strong culture and you don't have a strong mentally sound force, those outcomes are very difficult to actually execute on. So I really feel it's all part and parcel. And I've spent a lot of time really connecting with my people and our leaders of the company. And I haven't answered typically like that until just recently, but I think it's very much from the bottom of my heart in terms of how I've evolved and how I think we need to be as leaders during this difficult time.
And for the second part?
And for the second part, what would my colleagues not be surprised or would be surprised by with this question?
Do I sense some reticence here?
This is a very tough one, actually. We have one of the campaigns that we ran for the company is one where you get a hoodie and you have a relentless logo across your arm. And I find that even with having a small family and a growing family and trying to find out ways that we can kind of manage through these times as a global company CEO and very involved in operations, board, and from a capital markets perspective, I think it literally is just diehard, relentless passion. Just you can't stop where you're going in terms of pushing and achieving and pushing your body to crazy limits to get there and to be successful in this game. Cannabis is a very different industry than many others, and I think it takes a relentless focus on looking at the job, looking at your daily requirements, how your resource time is planned. And one of the biggest unfortunate kind of losers or challenges in this is your family. When you're a diehard entrepreneur and the shareholder value is such an important thing to the company and the business value and execution of our strategies is so important. Sometimes I really feel like I don't put enough attention or time to my little 3-year-old who all of a sudden started using some weird swear words recently because father wasn't around enough, possibly. But that's that's probably the part where, to be honest, I'm not sure if people see that side as much of me.
That was a very honest answer, and I can't say I'm not curious to know what the little fella was saying, but
little girl
for this episode, little girl, sorry.
Yes, she very happily started. Her little cousin taught her to say "fuck water wings." She doesn't want to wear water wings in the pool. Can you put these on, Audrey, please? No, Daddy, fuck water wings. So that was very comical. And father taped it a couple times, and now I get it a lot more. So the result of that was a lot more flack from wife and in-laws than I thought. But that's another story.
I guess that's part of leadership, running through the slack.
It is. It's so funny. Leadership, it's a continuous and it's such a heavy burden requirement on each one of our positions. It's a lonely place trying to lead everyone and always be the shoulder to cry on going through times like this. But I think we're doing a great job. And I think we're focused on medicines and making the world a better place with much more affordable medications. And so this is what really drives us through this. And I think we've got a really happy company.
I think that's excellent to hear and probably all we've got time for. And I'll assume that your happy company never tells you to fuck water wings when you tell them what's next for MediPharm, the pharmaceutical giant.
Yes.
There
you go, guys.
Having you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much
for joining us.
Well, listener, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Pat. We certainly did. And if you did enjoy the interview, we would ask you to help support the pod, and that is by subscribing if you haven't already, leaving a nice like, a comment, and perhaps even sharing the pod with a friend, colleague, or anyone else who you think might enjoy or not enjoy or be ambivalent to, but someone that may listen to the pod as well. We'd really appreciate any support you can give us here. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will see you next week. Bye now.
Oh, please take me above, take me with you.